let's go to the media and Hollywood, which I know some of you don't understand the influence that these people have, but they do. Because people who are unaware, who would never in a million years watch me or the No Spin News or try to get any information about anything, those people, there are millions and millions of them, and they do vote, some of them. And they pick up their information out of the sky, out of the internet, out of social media. And they don't check anything, they don't know anything. Okay? But these people can decide elections. So there's something called virtue signaling that is making me almost physically ill. I want to go over this with you. So virtue signaling, by definition, Oxford Dictionary, quote, the action or practice of publicly expressing opinions or sentiments intended to demonstrate one's good character or the moral correctness of one's position on a particular issue, unquote. That's virtue signaling. And you see this in Hollywood, oh, I am the most noble person. I know that we're a racist country and that blacks and other minorities are persecuted and the cops hate them. And I know, and this is wrong. And that's virtue signaling. Never a solution from the virtue signalers. Never. They don't have any. They don't even think about it. Okay? But they are just so noble. All right? You see it in Me Too. You see it all over the place. Oh, I believe all women. Oh, okay, fine. George Clooney, the actor, you haven't seen him around much. And his career took a dive after a very controversial tete-a-tete with me, your humble correspondent, after 9/11, when they held a giant TV fundraiser, a telethon, to help the families of the people killed on 9/11. And I willingly participated in that. And I thought it was one of the greatest things that television has ever done. The problem was, after the 500 million plus was raised, families didn't see any of the money. And they came to me, a lot of them. And he said, can you help us? We are desperate. We need help. Our fathers, mothers, children who used to support us, they're gone. And we're devastated. I said, of course I'm going to help you. It was my obligation morally because I asked for money and I donated money myself. So I went to all of the big actors and celebrities who participated in the telethon. And I said, can you get behind me so we can go to the United Way and the Red Cross and find out what the deuce is going on? F you, O'Reilly. F you. It's not happening. That's not true. I said, all right, it's mid-October. This telethon was 10 days after 9/11 on the 21st of September, 2001. It's been a month. There's no money. That's a fact. F you, O'Reilly. And Clooney actually wrote a letter calling me a liar and this, that, and the other thing. Well, it turns out I was absolutely correct. That all the charities admitted they didn't distribute the money. They all had excuses. United Way had an excuse. Red Cross had an excuse. Actually, Red Cross stepped up. And they said, we got to do a better job. So by the end of November, the money flowed. It took too long. And I'll never forget that. How bad George Clooney was. Subsequently, his career disappeared. Movie after movie, nobody went to see. The Oceans movie they did, but that was more of a concept. And now he sells some kind of booze. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars selling booze of some kind. I don't follow him. So anyway, he pops up this week, and he writes an article. I want to quote you 2 paragraphs from the article. First one, quote, George Clooney. The anger and frustration we see playing out once again in our streets is just a reminder of how little we've grown as a country from our original sin of slavery. The fact that we aren't actually buying and selling other human beings anymore is not a badge of honor. We need systemic change in our law enforcement and in our criminal justice system. All right, so we haven't made any progress, according to George Clooney, since slavery was abolished. I'll let you evaluate that statement. All right, the second paragraph. Quote, so this week, as we're wondering what it's going to take to fix these seemingly insurmountable problems, just remember we created these issues so we can fix them. Unquote. We created them. I didn't create any anti-black issue. I've helped black people my whole life. Not going to get into it, but a lot. So not we. Then I said, isn't George Clooney one of Barack Obama's big patrons? The answer is yes. Clooney is a big Barack Obama supporter, both monetarily and in the public arena. So wasn't Barack Obama president for 8 years? So is Barack Obama we? Is that part of the we? President Obama? Elected twice by a racist nation? So all I can tell you is this. George Clooney would never debate me on anything. He never, I've spoken to him a couple of times, but that's never going to happen again. I believe he is misinformed. But his attitude is what Hollywood embraces. The powerful people. And if you are a Hollywood person and you go against George Clooney's orthodoxy, you will not work. In fact, the despicable Dick Wolf, he's the Law and Order producer, fired a guy this week who said, you better not loot my house because I'm going to protect myself. The guy said that. I guess he's a writer for Law and Order, and Wolf fires him. There you go. So everybody in Hollywood knows you better not go up against the orthodoxy led by George Clooney and others. They love Clooney in Hollywood. They love him. But let's get back to President Obama. So some conservatives unfairly say he's the cause of the racial division in this country. That's not true. That's not true, in my opinion. And I know the news and the cycle and what happened, and I know the President Obama, a bit. That's not true. All right? What Barack Obama wanted to do and tried to do for 8 years is lift the economic status of African Americans and other minorities by, quote unquote, income redistribution. That's what Obamacare was all about. All right? That's what all the regulations that the federal government put on private business. Some of it was global warming, but most of it was get more money to the minority people, to the poor people. Now, by doing that, the president hurt the overall economy. And for 8 years, it was moribund until Trump came in, cut corporate taxes, and made it easier to do business in the USA, and then everybody was lifted. But Barack Obama was sincere in trying to help poor minorities and black people and white people too, because there were, if you were below a certain income, you got free medical care from Obamacare. If you were white, black, didn't matter. Okay? But he miscalculated. Barack Obama miscalculated. He was sincere, but it didn't work. And everybody knows that. Nobody will admit it, but everybody knows that. Now, Bernie Sanders and his ilk, they go, Obama, the problem was he didn't go socialist. If the government had run everything, it would have worked. Of course, it wouldn't. It's a bunch of garbage. But Obama went semi-socialist and didn't seize, which is what Sanders and the others, they want to seize private property and corporate assets. Okay. So then it goes from Barack Obama being president for 8 years, nothing is getting better in the black community, according to George Clooney. Okay, George, I mean, hey, your guy. And then it goes personal. White privilege. Okay, white privilege. This is fascinating. Jimmy Kimmel has the best definition of white privilege I have heard. Go.
People who are white, we don't have to deal with negative assumptions being made about us based on the color of our skin. It rarely happens, if ever. Whereas black people experience that every day, like every day.
That is what white privilege is. That black people get hassled by cops if they're riding around in the stores, whatever it may be, and white people don't. Mostly. If you go into a store and you're white and you have a SWAT sticker tattoo, you might. But Kimmel is absolutely 100% correct in his definition of it. But here's the problem with it. Whites and blacks do not have shared experiences over racial bias and never will. I'm not black. I don't get pulled over driving in a nice neighborhood, but a lot of my black friends do. I can't share their experience. I don't know the pain that causes them. I can sympathize that it's wrong, but I don't feel it because it doesn't happen to me. And that's what white privilege is. They say that white privilege, all right, is an advantage. That's not true. All right? It's just a different life experience. So if you want to say, O'Reilly, you're privileged because the cops don't pull you over when you're driving in a nice neighborhood, I go, all right, maybe I'm, you're more inconvenienced, but I came from Levittown. There's not a lot of white privilege in Levittown. All right, if you had walked into my house, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, no air conditioning, as modest as you can get, and told my parents they had white privilege, they would have went, what? My father would have probably yelled at you, and my mother would have given you meatloaf. But it was like insane. So white privilege is used. It's used. And there's 3 ways that it's used. 1, to send a message to black people that you're never going to get a fair shot in this country because the whites have the privilege. And that is so awful. So little children, little black children, you are never going to be treated fairly because whites have privilege because of their skin color. 2, to send a message to white people that their success isn't earned because they're white, they got stuff. I never got anything, ever. I worked for it, and I cut through ethnic boundaries. If you read A Bold, Fresh Piece of Humanity, my bio, I just spell it out for you. The 3rd thing is it's used by bad, evil people to divide America, to divide us. Because when Caucasians hear white privilege, they, all right? That's your white privilege.